In way of introductions, I'm still Murray Eisenwasser, so I'm not going to introduce myself. Andre, you met him before, and the new face for you all is one of our clients. Elvis Clemetson is the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at SBA Communications. He's a business technology leader with global experience delivering strategic solutions, digital innovations, and operational improvements in a wide array of companies within several industries, including high-tech, manufacturing, security, healthcare, retail, telecom, and financial services. Elvis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And what I wanted to do was end the day. We've been talking all day about the technologies and the use cases and the solutions and everything related to that. I really wanted to end on the softer side of AI. Talk about the people as the technology leaders that you guys are in your organizations. There's kind of three areas that hopefully we'll be able to talk about. One is, how are you guys preparing your teams, both internal to IT, but also the broader business teams around AI. Obviously, everyone knows about it, everyone's talking about it, everybody wants it, but how are you preparing the organization? Also, how are you either keeping the floodgates closed or opening them up just a little bit to get enough done? So those are kind of two areas that I'd like to talk about. All right, so please.
So let me set context. So what is SBA Communications? You heard from Felix earlier as we went through the program that we're working on with the teams here at Oz. SBA Communications, as I told a few people earlier, is perhaps the biggest company you have never heard of. We make about $2.7 billion in revenue. The market cap is about $27 billion, and the enterprise value is $40 billion. And we only have 1,800 employees. And so one more context to that is that profit per employee is perhaps top 30 in the entire world. We make about $300,000 per employee net profit, and about $1.5 million in revenue per employee. The reason I'm giving you all of that stat is that when you have such a lucrative business, you get complacent really fast. You start to say, well, we don't have to do much in order to really compete, and plus we're business to business. Some of our biggest customers are AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Telefonica. Most of the big companies you have heard about across the world that are in the telecommunication space, they're our customers. And so when you have that sweet model where you don't have to innovate too much, and our investors, the reason why the market cap is so big is because the revenue versus costs, the margin is so broad that investors expect to see it continue into infinity. That's what they want to see. So if you invest too much, yes, we're a publicly traded company. They like to hear the story of investment, but every quarter they want to check profit. They want to check your bottom line. And so we have to balance the idea of being a highly profitable company that always got a chance to do things on a minimal scale with this new era where if you do not innovate, you could die. And so I was brought into the company 2.5 years ago to help think different. Do not spend too much money, but help us to innovate along the way. And so we've partnered with Oz along that journey. So more to come as I sit up here.
Well, I appreciate that, Clem. So let me ask you, Andre, like, how are you training? Do you need a? Here you go. How are you training your development teams? Like, what are the new skills? Like, how are you approaching? Because I imagine that it's affecting kind of everyone that works for you in one way or another, either as a developer or someone that's supporting ongoing systems or supporting the infrastructure. Every member of your team is either currently or going to be impacted by this. How are you preparing them?
So training, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Training, of course, is a big part of any technology organization. Mm-hmm. Although we're not a technology organization, we're a hospitality organization, we do consider ourselves to be forward-thinking technology-wise. So we do a lot of really cool stuff with technology. I've got team, so I promote and facilitate the team to get trained in all the latest technologies. AI is just another latest technology. I've always encouraged my team members to get trained in the latest things that are coming about, whether it's data, AI, or otherwise. But you know, we have tuition reimbursement. We have team members that are going to MIT, Imran, or various colleges and universities to get trained. So we pay for that. We encourage it. We support it. We use lots of different training platforms, programs. We have curriculums. We track the training that people are getting. And so we make sure that a lot of this includes AI. And so we want to make sure that all of our team members are prepared to support the company moving into the future. There was one more thing I was going to say about that. But yeah, so we fully support training for everything, including AI.
So I assume that's an ongoing thing, and you're ensuring that people are continuously getting topped up, as it were, with the pace of change that's going on?
It's definitely ongoing, and when we come up with the plans and the training and curriculum and needs for the employees, we come up with ideas. Employees come to us with ideas, but we also encourage the team members. So when you think about the team members, there's lots of different types of team members. There's technical team members that need to get certain types of training so that they can be developers and testers and BAs. And every role changes slightly when you're doing deployments for AI. But we encourage teams to get trained in AI. So they'll come to us and we'll say, yes, of course, but we also encourage them if they don't think about it. We let them know why it might be important to them. We help people understand why it's important to them. As part of that, we roll out communications around AI, whether it's emails or newsletters or lunch and learns. We make sure that everybody has the opportunity to learn more about it, what's important. And when we're talking to team members about AI and technology and anything, I always encourage team members to learn the business, right? I mean, this is a technology, but we're in business to enable the business to be successful, to drive revenue, to drive down costs, to achieve efficiencies. So I'm always encouraging people to learn the business. Hard Rock, as I showed you earlier, very complex business. There's many different lines of businesses, but no matter what technology or what you're using, it's critical that team members know the business. In order to enable the business to deliver value, they have to know the business. So we encourage people to learn the technology, but we also encourage people to learn the business.
Awesome. Elvis, so how are you ensuring from your cloud and data and infrastructure teams are ready for the changes that are going to be coming to enable them to support these AI initiatives? Because there's a lot of technology at the base level that really needs to be available and ready, and especially as you start scaling solutions.
Opportunity cost of everything that you do. So it's all well and good when I go to the board meetings and I ask my Elvis, what are we doing to create that magic app where it will tell us where to put our towers, make the most money, and have the longest tenure in terms of political instability and all that stuff? Where should we put it? And that sounds more like AGI, right? Artificial General Intelligence. But there's so much blocking and tackling you have to do at the lower level in terms of data. I've heard you guys talk about data all day. I was happy to hear that because oftentimes the people I surround myself with believe that AI can bypass data structures and bypass data quality and just make magic happen. And I think part of this is because I see so much unstructured data possibilities working at home from ChatGPT, etc. So, to your question, how do I prepare them? The first thing I try to do, given the context I laid out before about the opportunity cost of spend, is what business problem we're trying to solve. And that's the key thing that he just pointed out. And so every member of my team, and I have 2 team members here who can attest to that, that's the number one thing I preach in the department. Try to understand what business problem we're trying to solve, the core business problem, not what people are asking us to do, but what's the core business problem we're trying to solve. And then we have guiding principles that kind of talk through how do you get to the real meat of value for the company. And so we talk a lot about what drives enterprise value for the company, and then we talk about how do we create a roadmap over a 5-year period to get to that enterprise value. And it could be, for instance, we have purchased data cleansing tools. We have reorganized the people that report to me. Like you met Felix earlier, he's accountable for digital transformation, the whole stack. We have put people into enterprise application support role. In the past, we were more blended. Like everybody was just busy solving problems, watching the company grow. So you have to organize the people first, and you have to get the executive committee on board with a roadmap that makes sense to them. Although we're a publicly traded company once again, and I want to see results as quickly as possible. But once you have the internal team aligned and the board aligned, yes, you can do some of the blocking and tackling at the lower levels to get to what you need to do in the long term for AI to really shine.
Right. Interesting. And I do want to talk more in a few minutes about the board, because I'm sure that that's an interesting conversation. But like, what you've both invested organizationally a lot into current technologies, current applications, current processes. How are you, again, focusing on the teams to get them to start thinking differently about those and extending the life of those with some of these technologies we've been talking about today? Like, what is it that you're doing from, again, that people side, right? That whole softer side of what you guys do to think differently about existing investments that you've already made?
Yeah, I'll say spending time with the employees and helping them understand the value and the benefit to the company, the value and the benefit to themselves. We're technology people. I'm a technology geek. I always love the latest cutting edge technology. Some of this AI, there's Microsoft stuff. I love it. And technology people, they see the shiny new technology. They want to do it. I encourage them to understand we're not using technology because we love it just for the technology purposes. We're doing it to deliver business value. And so when we're working with the team members, we help them understand the business I talked about, but the use cases around how we might leverage this technology. What are the use cases we're actually going to leverage this technology for? Again, so we can deliver business value. And it really comes back to learning and understanding the business, so we're delivering capabilities for the business. But helping them to understand the business, understand the use cases, the value, the return on investment for how this is going to contribute to the bottom line for the company. But just helping them see the big picture is something that's important.
Elvis, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
So let's switch gears a little bit. So how are you engaging leadership? Other people kind of at that, board level, the C-suites, the divisional leaders. How are you engaging them to champion this AI transformation, but to also get them to truly understand what's involved? I think, I'm assuming you're getting, let's move forward on the stuff from them, but then you're also getting on the other side, whoa, let's slow it down. So how are you managing the people at that higher level?
That's an excellent summary, actually. We have advocates within the C-suite who push, and we have others that said, why are we changing anything? We have a good gravy train here. Let's just stick with what we have. And so I find myself becoming an evangelist more than anything else. I spend most of my time articulating why technology matters and why what we do matter in the long run and why we should not just rest on our laurels. And so my team can tell you, I get involved in global calls. One of the calls I co-chaired with the CEO of the company, and we kind of talked through, of course, the top topic for them has always been cybersecurity, but then we also touched on what are we trying to do in terms of an enterprise roadmap to help us to be better and more competitive. And you have heard the cliche examples before about Airbnb disrupting the hotel industry or the hospital, all that stuff. So I use examples sometimes to point out that even though we feel we're secure, because if you build a tower and someone lives beside a tower, they won't want you to build a next tower down the street, so it feels kind of secure. But technology is changing to the point where people can put antennas anywhere, street lights, building tops, anywhere now. So and in international markets, it gets even more competitive, where if there's a competitor here, you can put a wall in front of the competitor to block signals. The amount of things that people come up with is just changing rapidly. And particularly in the developing countries, we're now getting into more active networks. So there are countries where power is cut off for 12 hours at a time. So we now have to have generators. We now have to have batteries. So now we have to do lots of IoT to figure out what's going on in the field, how to optimize travel. So it's fascinating how an industry that was so lucrative and so guarded has now transformed into something that you better get on top of technology to handle. And so I use examples like these with the executive team. When I meet with the board, I use other examples similarly to kind of get them on board with why we need to spend the money.
Mm-hmm. So back in the original internet boom, a number of my clients at the C level literally said to me, I'm retiring in 6 months, 9 months, a year. This isn't going to be my problem. I'm doing nothing because I'm retiring. Are you hearing things like that around AI?
The adoption, the interest, varies wildly. I mean, we have C-suite people that we find out they're using AI, they're doing proof of concepts that we in IT are unaware of, but they're big evangelists and they love the technology. Other people, very scared of it. And lots of people are very scared of AI. When they hear about AI and any technological advancements, they're scared. They're scared it's going to expose the company. They're scared it's going to make them vulnerable. They're scared it's going to take their job. There's so many reasons why they fear technology. And so, yeah, there's lots of people, period, executives and otherwise, that fear technology and fear AI. And so we need to do a lot to, again, educate them. And so we go to the president's meetings, and we have presidents from our various properties around the world, and we educate them on what we're doing for the company. Some of the things I shared with you guys today, but what we're doing with the company around AI. We're letting them know that we're formalizing policies around AI because we have to make sure that we're secure, we're using it wisely, we're ethical, and so we make sure to educate the presidents and everyone else around these things. And so for the late adopters, these types of folks, they ask a lot of questions and they learn a lot. Some people you need to hold back because they're moving too quickly, and we do have policies where you can use some things on the network, and you can't use customer data and things like this. Other people we pull forward and we pull them along with us, but it varies widely across the board.
All right. So when you're looking at the departments that are wanting to do AI, how are you working with the teams to prioritize things? Like, how are you saying, oh, this one's good or that one not yet? Because then you get that interdepartmental, I'm sure none of you have ever experienced this, right? Where one department thinks that they're like not getting any attention, and they think that the other department's getting all the attention when it's really the reverse. Because I'm sure none of you have experienced any of that, right? But how are you managing that as the technology leaders? Where you have a bunch of people banging on your door and saying, you need to support me.
So that's a very tough problem to solve, by the way. Even though I'm in the C-suite and I report directly to the CEO, there are forces in each of the divisional leaders that's so strong that that's the hill they want to go die on. If I don't get this, I can't run my business. I'm blind. This is very important to me. Another business leader will say, hey, this is too disruptive. At this time, I don't think we should be spending money on that, because as shareholders of the company, we don't believe that's a good use of funds. So sometimes I end up becoming a referee, and I use a roadmap type scenario to drive business outcomes and decision making. And so that's something that I've been emphasizing over the last 3 years. I have 3-year at a time roadmap, and it's rolling. And people keep me accountable, by the way. They laminate these roadmaps. Even within IT, everybody laminate the roadmaps, put them on their desk. The international teams have them as well. And so we have to stick to it. And what that does, by the way, it drives accountability within the IT team, as well as the business leaders and their people that report to them. We wish we could do more faster. And so part of that is to leverage more outside parties, as I mentioned before, with Oz, with other team members outside, just to see if we can get extra capacity to push a bit faster.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'd add a couple of things. So, again, there's tons of shiny new technology, and we have stakeholders all over the world, all over these many lines of businesses. So to your point, we have tons and tons and tons of requests constantly, right? So they see things on the commercial, they see things on the Microsoft website, and they want them. Everybody wants them. And so we have an intake process, a standard intake process, because we do get tons of requests all over the world. We have an intake process where, and to the question, how do we manage the influx of the flow and keep it to a manageable level? We have an intake process where people, different business areas, stakeholders, submit their requests, submit their needs. We have business relationship managers that work with our various lines of businesses to understand what's going to be important to them, what are their roadmaps, what are their business goals and their business objectives, so the BRMs and business relationship managers understand what's important, help come up with a roadmap, and then that turns into input into the intake process. The intake process then is the beginning of the funnel where we start to get all these requests. In order to drive something to the point where we're going to start spending money on it, significant money, we have a steering committee. And so the steering committee is, the top leaders of the company, and that's the the constraint of driving things before they start flying out all over the world. Comes in, the intake goes into the steering committee evaluates it, there has to be a business case that's submitted, what is the cost, what are the returns, what is the return on investment, so the steering committee evaluates these types of things, and then approves or declines, and that turns into budget. And budget drives everything, right? So you have to have budget, you have to have money before you can actually buy stuff, apply resources, or start doing anything. So budget drives everything, and that's one of the levers that we use to help manage what we're delivering and what we're deploying out there. So that's one of the ways that we constrain that. The one other thing I wanted to mention about that is, we do a lot of proof of concepts. So before it needs to go to the steering committee, before it needs to go to the intake process, we'll do a lot of proof of concepts. People come to us with ideas around what they want to do, and if we can do a quick, easy proof of concept, we'll deploy some sort of AI connected to some data in a small fashion, do a proof of concept, and prove out whether or not there's any potential for it to deliver value. And then that, if it turned into something that it could deliver value, then that may go into the intake process for approval.
Awesome. So you mentioned earlier, Andre, the C-suite leader that has a shadow AI project going on. We've heard over the years shadow IT, right? Marketing department usually has their own IT thing going on. And how are you managing when you find them, these, for both of you? Because I'm sure they're happening in every organization. I know they're happening here at Oz. I'm sorry. Those shadow AI projects, how are you managing those?
So in the specific to AI, the general counsel and I are now close, not in terms of friend, but in terms of collegiate time spent together. We've actually co-authored an AI policy for the company. And I was sharing earlier with some of the folks around the table that yes, you can buy technology that sees which AI is being developed, and if people use different cloud vendors, you can't see everything. So what we've done is write a policy and have every employee acknowledge the AI policy. And the AI policy is very simple. If you have an AI type something that you're working on, it must be signed by the CIO. And that's me. And so it doesn't necessarily go to Felix and other people like that to figure it out. But it has to go through the office of the CIO. And every 3 months, I need to meet with the general counsel to talk about what people are working on. Why is this important? The general counsel has fears. If we just allow people to use whatever AI they have out there, apart from the stuff that you'd call not really politically correct that AI can do, there's also proprietary information that might get scraped. I know we're sued. It could be loss of work hours because people are chasing shiny objects when in fact that doesn't really solve a business problem. There's a litany of reasons why that policy was put in place, because technology by itself cannot govern the entire company.
Right.
And so anyway, that's how we have solved it. And still, we catch people doing it.
What do you do to them?
So we have, it's funny. We have something in our department called the Policy Violation Notice, a PVN. We came up with it because of cybersecurity. We actually had cybersecurity rules, and it was a way of punishing people that do things that goes against policy. And we actually record this and give it to HR. And so if there's an employee that violates other things outside of the PVNs, and you look at the PVNs and you look at the behavior and look at other things and say, well, it walks like a dog, acts like a dog. Maybe this person shouldn't be here. And so it has real teeth in it in that regard. However, if it is a senior executive cannot get PVNs. And so the way you handle that now is that we have a conversation, and if a conversation doesn't go too well, I try not to bring things to the CEO. He has too much burdens. I try to figure, can I piggyback and formalize this AI, or do I just kill it? And so that becomes really dicey.
And I assume part of the discussion is, was this a really cool, interesting thing that's driving our business? Then it's like, oh, well, we'll let it go this time.
Yeah. Yes, I've done that before too, by the way.
Andre?
Yeah, when a C-level person comes to you and says, hey, I'm doing this little thing with AI proof of concept that you're completely unaware of, you're not stopping it. I mean, you're not stopping it for the most part. But what you do is you learn, understand what they're doing, understand the value, and then help them understand how you can support them, you and IT, because you're right. There's places there's departments that are creating shadow IT all over the place all the time. And that's not new with AI. It's always been the case. And so you figure out how you can partner with them and help them understand how you can add value to what they're doing. I mean, you say you, it's not necessarily you, but it's your resources, right? You have a lot of resources, technical teams that can help them, whether it's with requirements, whether it's with testing, whether it's with making it secure, whether it's with hardening and scaling it. So you help them understand how you can help them and deliver value to them. And then another thing that you make sure that you can do is help them understand how it could or could not be leveraged throughout the enterprise, throughout all the many lines of businesses. Because
Right.
when you're doing a little proof of concept in your little laptop or something, you're not really connected with a lot. It'll give you some value, but when you learn how you might be able to connect it with the entire world, and the world of hard rock is so complex, and then all this data, it could be a massive lift, but you can help them understand how can scale and span across the world.
What he just said is magic, by the way, because learning or teaching them how what they've done can scale oftentimes can get them on your side. So I think that's really valuable advice.
So you both have touched upon this, but when you think of the floodgates of AI that are holding AI back, right? I mean, you mentioned the timeline and slapping people's wrists with bad behavior, right? But how are you what are your plans for creaking it open, from an enterprise perspective and letting it in, right? Because it seems to me that once you let it in, you're never going to get it out. What are your plans for controlling that flow over the next 12 to 18 months where I think things are going to change dramatically yet again?
That's a really tough question for more reasons than one. So even within my own team, we have to also innovate a bit more. And that's something that is public within my team. And everybody has been given a mandate to start moving forward, try to innovate a bit faster. Because once again, we've been complacent for so long because we never had to. But no, with all the case examples I've presented before where we now have to move at the speed of, maybe not light, but speed of sound, we now have to do a lot more than ever before. So we're trying to encourage people, and through different departmental structures and giving different teams mandates, we're now empowering different teams to come up with ideas that none of us would have ever thought about on our own.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not trying to control the flow. I'm trying to embrace the teams, the technology, and everything that people are trying to do. I'm trying to become part of it. As I say, there's different areas that are coming up with all these different projects and different kind of proof of concepts that they're doing. But I'm trying to ensure that IT, central IT, is part of it. So we're embracing it. We're cataloging it. I have a catalog of all the AI we're doing. I know how much of it my team's involved in, how much our team's not involved in. I know who's working on the various things. So we embrace it. We work with the team. And we make sure that we can learn the value that it delivers to the company so we can help them bring it through the flow, bring it through the intake process, bring it through the steering committee. But yeah, I'm not worried about it at all.
Oh, okay. So we have a couple of minutes left. Any questions for these guys? Because, I have pages full. If not, so.
What time's the bar open?
Soon. Jason.
Sure. So one question is, I've been reading more about the EU AI Act, and so I've been reading about the EU AI Act, and we're looking at how this is going to eventually start affecting. In some ways, it affects U.S. businesses now, and like GDPR, there's expectations around California and New York creating their own versions. How are you seeing? So being international businesses, how are you seeing the EU AI Act affect operations or future planning?
So when you think about data, AI is facilitated by data. We've been talking about data. I've talked about data as critical. And we have data that's coming from all over the world, pockets of customer data coming to us globally. Think about data privacy, regardless of whether it's the California law, the Nevada law, the GDPR law, or the EU law. There's lots of laws. Every state is coming up with a law. There's federal laws that are going to be developed. But we treat data with the highest security, the highest privacy, no matter what. And we do things like I talked about before, where we will never expose our customer data anywhere. There's laws around, what you can do with your Chinese data. You got to keep it in China. And so, you need to be aware of the law. And we have a team. A data privacy team that is aware and abreast of all the current laws and ensures that they bring and educate us so that we make sure as we're developing the systems, we're adhering to all the latest laws. But data privacy is top for Hard Rock. We make sure that we never expose our customer data to the public. We don't expose our customer data to any LLMs. And so it's key for anything that we do.
It's interesting though, there's a merger of skills that a person needs within a technology function to do well. So to his point, you have to understand a little bit about data privacy. You have to bring in also the cybersecurity officer and the person responsible for compliance. I can tell you, like Felix perhaps spends a lot of time with our head of cybersecurity just on data topics. And so with all these laws going every day, you have to start thinking about DLP a lot more. And so yes, there are challenges that might inhibit a faster move, but we're not moving fast enough anyway, so that's not a big problem for us at this moment. Oh, sorry.
I think there's one in the back, and we'll come to you.
So, with generative AI rolling around, especially in the, I'm responsible for our dev shop at our company. Speed to market is really, that's paramount for us. I'm always after developers to deliver faster. But what I also see is, and we talked about shadow IT a minute ago, is a lot of this puts a lot of power in people that aren't IT. And you talked about, regulation and making sure the policies are in place. So how are you approaching that? And similarly, one of the things I've enjoyed lately has been citizen development, because for longer projects that it takes IT to do, because we have that policy in place, maybe they can do it a little bit faster without the regulation, maybe not. And then if they need something a little bit more complicated, they can come to us. But in your companies, respectively, how do you handle shadow IT as well, and citizen development?
So I think citizen development is a term I use a lot more frequently than anything else. So yes, we'll always have the shadow, the people that just want to go unregulated. But we've handled that through policies with the General Counsel, so if they violate, we can slap their hand to an extent. As he said, if it's a CEO, you figure out a way to work with it, or a president of a business or something like that. But for the most part, you can regulate that. A next thing that we've done, however, is the whole idea of citizen development. So we're actually carving out a methodology to deal with that. For instance, Microsoft Power Apps environments. We are going to we have citizen development environments for the business where you can knock yourself out, do what you need to do. But if it's something that is in scope or something that is SOX related, it has to go through the mothership before it is deployed. So there are ways in which you can empower and tighten and release to some extent so that they don't feel suffocated. And we have done that with Power BI to some extent as well. Obviously we have like Databricks and Azure and all that stuff, but we empower the business to go and build their own reports. Once again, if it doesn't hit a certain threshold of importance to shareholders. So we let them run, you can operate your business, we're not going to get in your way, but if it no impact shareholders, it has to go through the mothership. So stuff like that is what we do.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, please,
Yeah, I'll just add to it.
bring us home.
I love citizen development. So I empower, encourage all of our business stakeholders, all of our stakeholders to be able to be as self-sufficient as possible. We want to drive down the cost of IT, drive down the perception that IT makes things slower. If we can enable the business to do it more quickly themselves, I love it. I don't need to hire people to do it. I don't need to manage people to do it. Now we need to do it safely. We do things like we'll have Tableau similar to your Power BI, but we'll have Tableau where Shashir, my chief data leader over here, his team develops our data Tableau platform, but they develop the capability for our business stakeholders to develop their own data sources, develop their own reports, run their own automation. Then we don't need to have Shashir's team spending 24/7 running their reports, keeping them alive because they can do it themselves. So they hold workshops to educate them so that they know how to do it themselves. But we love citizen development.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, based on some of the experiences that I've had with organizations, large organizations, they've created AI steering committees that include CIOs and VPs of enterprise architecture, but with maybe the general counsel, maybe somebody from cybersecurity or somebody from the other sort of major organizational units to try and determine where to go first as it relates to some of this AI stuff. So based on that and based on what you're seeing, can a leader own AI or a particular organizational unit? How do you see that? Where does the buck stop?
I like to think a leader can own AI. I'm considered the AI owner for Hard Rock. So I think yes, but no one person owns it, right? We've talked about it. So many people are using AI in their day-to-day lives, in every single business department. At our company, we have my boss's VP. So we have a board of my boss's VPs with me, and I'm the AI guy. A lot of stuff comes through there. The various VPs, they have directors and so on. We're all working with the team members. We're hearing what's going on in terms of AI, and so we're trying to be aware of everything that's going on. In addition to that board and myself, we have an actual innovation team. The innovations team job is to learn about what's happening in the industry, what are the technological advances, what are the business advances, to try to marry technology with business capabilities. And so that innovations team's number one job is to learn new technologies, how they can enable the business. AI is just one of those technologies. Most of it comes through me, but that innovation team also kind of helps us corral and figure out what technologies or capabilities are going to be something that we want to bring to the intake process, bring to the board, bring to the steering committee.
Companies struggle with that particular issue you just mentioned. So 20 years ago, the CIO's role was very clear, responsible for all technologies. And then over the last 20 years, Forrester, Gartner, everybody, postulate different ways in which you can become efficient. Let's create a chief digital officer, reports to marketing or become the marketing person. Let's create a chief information security officer. Shouldn't be IT, it would be a compromise. Let's create a chief data officer. Oh, can't be anywhere near those two. It needs to be separate. And so you keep seeing traditional technology splintered across many different leaders in a lot of large organizations. My personal opinion is that I think that's not a really good strategy long term, because then you have different pockets using the same underlying data set in fragmented ways, unless you really have a charismatic CEO who's herding all the cats who report to him or her. We don't have that problem currently, but I do believe as we get bigger, that problem might rear its head. And so if, to your point about the steering committee for artificial intelligence, the way I see it is the role needs to be more of an orchestrator. There are going to be so many different people with so many different things. That person has to be really good at communicating what's good for everyone and try to get different viewpoints and try to do what he mentioned before, which is kind of get things into a list of initiatives and what are the ROIs and try to get people on board. Times have changed. The role of a senior leader of technology is no more of an orchestrator than ever before. And I think that's what's going to be the success of this role going forward.
All right. Thank you. So can we go to the next slide, please? So what I thought we would do is, I don't know if you have questions from the day, but thank you guys both. You can stay up here for while we're doing this. But thank you both. That was wonderful. If you have questions for any of the presenters, they're still here somewhere in the room. Raise your hands if you were one of the people that helped us out today. Yeah, so you're still here. If you have questions, now's the time. Take a couple of minutes. Maybe we can get them answered. If not, then we can, close out the day, as they say.
I had a question for the person who presented, Bob the agent. So yeah, I noticed during the demo you asked a question that seemed like it could have been answered in just in an FAQ, and it took the AI quite a bit of time to respond. It's like how to submit a ticket or whatever it was. So the question is, do you have any other maybe some things that could short circuit going to the AI and maybe go to an FAQ, like a canned response? Maybe something that the AI generated once really good, or maybe, hey, the AI didn't do a good job. I've got this other response when they ask this question. I want this to be the answer. Thank you.
Yes, we definitely have this part, but first about the timing. What you saw was like kind of the warm-up time. It's like whenever you need to run it first time, it needs to go through all the services, and the second time it's much faster. But you also saw the mechanism how to evaluate the responses. So you can say like it's good or it's not, and it will take it into consideration and kind of like fine-tune the response for you.
Anything else? Oh,
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. Another thing too is that the FAQ can't really be summarized. So sometimes that FAQ answer is, might be kind of long. And, one of the examples that we showed was summarize this for me. Make this a little bit of a briefer answer for me. And that's where the LLM can come in and actually do that.
And you can go deeper into the question.
Yeah, exactly.
This is for the panel that is on the stage. I'll be interested to understand in your evangelism with the board and what have you. How do you work with them to understand the term AI? Because AI has become like the word automobile. It could be a truck, it could be a sports car, it could be a number of different things. So when they're imagining a project with AI, they're thinking about AI, and typically it's probably the shorter term AI in terms of Gen AI and what have you. How do you work with them to understand what they're talking about in terms of AI, or what they're referring to may not be exactly, from a time frame perspective, that it would take longer. For example, a predictive model will be longer than a Gen AI chatbot, but they're calling it AI anyway. So how do you work with them to understand that?
I can give you this is real world. 2 quarters ago, maybe 3 quarters ago, normally when a board meets with me, they want to talk about cybersecurity because, of course, the SEC has changed rules. Now the CIO or CISO has to sign off on all the 8Ks and 10K statements. So they want to protect themselves by talking about cyber all day long. But 2 quarters ago, they said, Elvis, we want an AI presentation. And so I went there with very basic definitions and a very basic timeline, because if you give too much information, you're the geek in the room. So I had to figure out how do I explain complex concepts in a way that the average Joe could understand. So I actually had 2 slides, and the slides just basically touched on how people used to develop, what is this machine learning, and what is this stuff that people are calling generative, and where are we not at this point in terms of artificial general intelligence. And I just broke out those simple 4 topics, and then they said, so what are you doing? And then I had a list that kind of showed what are we doing and not doing in some of those spaces. And then, of course, that's when they start to dream and tell me about the things that they want me to focus on. And then I had to talk about, I used like Gartner's hype cycle, but I broke it down in a different way, where I talked about the height of irrational exuberance, as that Fed chair once said, and then the slope of disillusionment when people spend too much money and don't get the return, and then the slope of enlightenment when reality sets in, when you really can do tangible things and get stuff done. So I actually had to go through that with the board members who come from all walks of life, quite executives from many walks of life. So you have to break it down in a way that makes sense, and then talk about what are you going to do in terms of investment and what you're not going to do at this time while the technology matures.
Yeah, I'd add to that, it's a journey. Can you guys hear me? It's a journey, right? So it's not an immediate thing, but similar to what Elvis was saying, during one of the board meetings, or the steering committee meeting, holding the, can you guys hear me? Yeah. If you can hear me. Holding a session where you bring some slides and you share with them some very basic AI education, very basic AI terminology. You don't go over, even as much as I went over today with I think I shared 6 different types of AI, you don't go over 6 types of AI. You keep it very simple, as if you're educating, I have a 5 and a 7-year-old daughter. I've never read to them, Eric, are you here? I've never read to them during nighttime AI books, but I'm going to get a book for my toddler. But anyways, you educate them as if, they don't know anything about AI. Now, lots of them are very advanced and they know AI. Some of them are just geniuses. But keep it simple, keep it short, keep it straightforward. And then same thing, here's the basics, and then here's 2 things that we're doing with AI. We may be doing 50, we may be doing 100, but here's 2 things that we're doing with AI that they may or may not know about. Educate them. And then, have a road show. So we have a road show where we go to various venues and we share with whoever the audience is, if it's the hotel president or the casino president, or whoever it is, the GMs, we have a road show and we share with them the same thing, basic of AI, and then here's what we're doing for your line of business. So we just try to educate them.